1 year into his presidency now, Joe Biden has delivered on some of the promises he made during his campaign to address the global and critical issue of climate change. Some, but not all. And as an aggressive White House climate agenda stalls in congressional gridlock, critics are pointing to those undelivered promises as a sign that Biden's optimism for major climate reform has been met with a proverbial bucket of cold water. It was in Glasgow, in that high-stakes meeting between world leaders on what to do with what many consider to be humanity's biggest threat, that President Biden spoke to those promises and what he hoped to do in the immediate future.
On my very first day in office, I took action to return the United States to the Paris Agreement. Since then, our administration has been hard at work unlocking clean energy breakthroughs to drive down the cost of technologies that will require us to achieve net zero emissions, and working with the private sector on the next generation of technologies that will power a clean economy of the future.
So at the 1 year mark of the Biden presidency, what does the president's report card look like when it comes to the White House climate change efforts? ABC News chief meteorologist Ginger Zee joins us now on this. And Ginger, I know this is a passion of yours, and every time I talk to you about it, I learn something. But let's start with the president. He talks a big game on this, right? Passionate about it. He talks about how he wants to make a difference on this. How would you grade the administration's first year when it comes to the efforts on climate change?
I think it is really tough to give one grade, partially because there are so many subjects within, partially because we are only 1 year in, and I think a lot of these things obviously take quite a bit longer. However, it does feel to me a bit like a group project, and I used to hate those at school because you've always got somebody like a leader that's like, yeah, I got great ideas. And then you have to have the worker bees. You have to have the execution of these fantastic ideas. And I think in some places, this administration has excelled in doing that. I think in a lot of other places, they've made some befuddling choices that probably give them a lower grade so far. But if you take electric vehicles, for example, great promises, the whole federal fleet are going to be this, but you have to have the infrastructure in place. And so that infrastructure now hangs within a bill that you were just mentioning is a problem because it's all lumped in together and it has to pass. So at this very moment, instead of a grade, I'd have to give an incomplete.
For sure. And I'm just reading this here. European scientists recently concluded that the past 7 years have been the hottest on record by what they call, quote, a clear margin. And in 2021, this struck me. America's greenhouse gas emissions rose by more than 6%. That's according to the Rhodium Group Global Research Institute. Now, that surprised me because you'd think during the pandemic, people working from home, traffic is lighter here in Washington, you'd think it would go down. So why did emissions rise? And what can the Biden administration really do if they're going to rise during a pandemic when everybody's mostly working from home? How realistic is it to hope we can reverse that?
Well, that number is the rise after 2020. So it did go down because nobody was going anywhere. And then the economy rebounded a bit. And of course, the emissions are going faster than the economy in many ways, which is a problem. But if you compare 2021 to 2019, it's still less than that. So we are going in the right direction, but a lot of the environmental groups and climate change focused folks would say not even close to fast enough. So how do we get there? It really has to be wide sweeping, something like a BBB, you got to build it back, and you have to get the legislation that's going to stick beyond this administration, beyond just his presidency, because otherwise it's going to be this game of flipping and flopping. And you saw Trump roll back something as easy as energy efficiency within a home. Now the Department of Energy has had to spend time putting that back into place. Until you get solid legislation that sticks, you are not going to make the big changes and the big digs at fossil fuel emission and global greenhouse global gas emissions.
And that day looks like it's a long way off. So I want to ask you, you've got your climate series, It's Not Too Late, which we strongly recommend for our viewers. It's one of the things I like about it is I think one of the problems with climate change advocacy sometimes is it sounds very dark and gloomy, and there's a despair knit into it in some ways. But you've got It's Not Too Late. That's the title of your series. Yeah. So why? Well, why don't you think it's too late to do something?
Because while the biggest improvements in our, focus of renewable energy and such has to come from legislation in many ways, we all have more control than we think. It is not too late. And if we look at it like doom and gloom and it's the end, then it's basically the film Don't Look Up, right? It's just kind of, well, all right, well, let's go. Instead, I think knowing that we have power and we can vote, not just for the people that we think are doing the right thing, but probably even more importantly, voting with our dollar. We can support and showcase the things that are doing it the right way. So taking something as easy as the reduction of plastic, and I know this sounds so simple and like, oh, what are you bringing us here? Something brand new. The impact of plastic, both on what the fossil fuel industry has to create in creation of plastic, but then on top of that, the environmental disaster we've gotten ourselves into with plastics at nearly 400 million metric tons just last year of plastic created. You have agency over that. And that's what I think It's Not Too Late is really about, is that all the way from your plastic baggie up to the people you vote for that make these choices, it is not too late, because it can't be.
I love that. I feel better, but I got to tell you, one place we could start is McDonald's Happy Meals. Because they come with a plastic toy. I got three kids get Happy Meals all the time. I'm thinking, and they play with them for 15 minutes, and then we throw them in the recycling bin. I mean, it's just...
We need to be like my grandma used to be, and when she didn't like something, she wrote the company. We all can do that. We can say to McDonald's, we don't want your plastic toy any longer. We don't want this. And it sounds like it doesn't matter, but it does. How many of those plastic toys are multiplied around the globe? We could have real impact. I'm happy to call them. I'll do it with you, Terry.
That's a great idea. That's a project for my kids. They'll love it, I'm sure. ABC News Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z. Thanks as always.
Thank you.